Hi, my name is Don Budd. I'm a Seventh-day Adventist, and I've been so for 34 years now. And I have a testimony I'd like to share regarding something that happened to me that I will never forget. A life-changing situation that I've heard in Adventist circles, but I never thought would happen to me. It happened on September 19th. And so every September 19th, I give a testimony. It's a day I acknowledge as an anniversary of this incident. Sometimes the day falls on a Sabbath, and usually I'm in a church where testimonies are offered. If it doesn't, that following Sabbath following Sabbath, I'll definitely stand up or raise my hand to give this testimony. I was living in Los Angeles at the time, and this particular September 19th was on a Friday. Very beautiful day, but I actually was depressed. I was so depressed that I wanted to take my life. I had actually called my mother, who lives in Washington, D.C., to tell her that I'm going to end my life. And if you had seen my life, on the outside, it looked very good. Where I was living is a place that some people dream of living in Los Angeles. I had a very good business that was successful, but there were other things that were going on in my life. I was living a lukewarm life, and my definition of lukewarm is a mixed life that reaches all the way back to the Garden of Eden, to the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. I was trying to live a life of doing what I knew to be right and living in sin at the same time, that mixed life that the Bible describes as a life of hot and cold. You end up lukewarm. And I know that God is sending his son the second time for a people that are pure in heart, no mixture, no trying to serve two masters. So I was living that way at this time, and so I was going to conduct business on this day, and I had to take some money, a deposit, to an office. And when I reached the office, dropped off the deposit, as I was leaving, a woman who worked at this particular business asked me if I could give her a ride home in town. And after I went to this office, my plans was to go home and think about how I was going to commit suicide. So I really didn't want to be bothered. When she asked me to take her home, I really wanted to tell her no, but I did it. And as we were going down the elevator, she said, I just need to make one stop. I need to go to the bank right around the corner and cash my check. Now, the bank that she wanted to go to was in an area that is called Koreatown, because it's full of Korean people and businesses. Like some areas you have Chinatown. And so we went to the bank. I went in with her, sat down. As I got in the bank, I saw the people there especially those who worked there, they were looking at me. It's like their eyes could not be removed from me in a suspicious manner. It was so bad, I decided to go outside and wait for the woman after she finished doing her business in the bank. So I went outside, right outside the doors of the bank. And this was in a large strip mall. So there were lots of stores next to the bank and around the bank. And I just went outside in front of the bank and called a client because the client was involved in this transaction that I just finished conducting business just finished conducting business regarding something this woman was involved in. I'll put it like that. And so I called her to tell her, I dropped the money off and so forth, and was beginning to talk about the business we were involved in. And so while I was talking to her outside the bank, I would say about 5 or 10 minutes into the conversation, I saw this man, a Korean guy, storm into one of the stores, I would say about 2 or 3 doors down from the bank. He stormed in there, and all of a sudden I heard 2 shots. And I heard a woman screaming after the 2 shots went off. And so in my mind, and the woman I was on the phone with, my client, she heard the shots as well. And she said, "Man, where are you?" And I heard the guy talking his language. And in my mind, all of this is taking place very quickly. I was thinking that maybe he went in there and killed his wife. That was just my thought. So seconds later, he came to the front of the store and he shot in the air. So that was 3 shots already. So again, though, my client on the phone heard the shots, and I'm beginning to, wonder, like, what is this guy doing? So I took a few steps back, and I ran on the side of the bank, and I was peeping around the corner to watch him, and all of a sudden I saw him running toward me. And so I ran on the side of the bank and jumped into a ditch and just began to lay flat. I'm still on the phone with my client, talking to her, telling her everything that's going on. He's coming toward me. And then I see the guy right there looking down at me over the ditch with the gun pointed upward in his hand. And he could have shot me right there. But he disappeared. And I waited a few minutes because I didn't know what to do. And I climbed back over, there's a little metal fence. I climbed back over that and got back on the solid ground right where the bank was. And again, we're in a parking lot of this strip mall. So when I climbed back over, there he was. And the only thing that stood between he and I was a car. And so I saw him on the other side of the car, and the next thing I know, he aimed the gun at me and pulled the trigger and shot. So when he shot that first time, I ducked. I ducked down, and then I came back up. He shot again. 3 times, shot again. Then he started to come toward me, chasing me around the car. I go left, he go right. I go right, he goes left. Now that's 3 times he shot at me. And I can remember getting on my knees. As I was on my knees, I was saying to God, I'm getting ready to die today. So I began to throw my car keys to him, throw my wallet, throw my cell phone. I'm pleading with him. I don't have any weapons. What are you doing? I don't have anything. Here's my. You can. Anyway, I'm hysterical. I'm afraid, and by this time he had shot at me 4 times. And I just decided in my mind, I'm going to run for my life. So I got back up, and that's what I did. I ran. And as I was running, I heard another shot. This was shot number 5. And when he fired that shot, I was taken off of my feet. It felt like someone tackled me from behind. I didn't know if it was him, but it felt more like, I don't know, like a moving object had hit me. I played football when I was a kid, and so I know what that feels like. I looked behind, there was nothing. Later found out that that was a bullet that hit my leg and actually took me off my feet. So I got back up. I started to run outside the parking lot, and I saw a white van. I began to run behind that van, and something told me to hide up under it. And then as I was doing that, I could see his feet coming toward the van. And I said, no, I better get up from here because he can just put the gun right underneath and I'm dead. So I got up and I ran left. He come right, go right. He come left. I ran back in the parking lot, going back toward my car and toward the bank. And then I'm exhausted. You know, when you're afraid, other times I know I could have ran miles without getting tired. But I was so exhausted, it felt like I ran a marathon. I was so afraid that I couldn't even take baby steps. It was like my body was paralyzed, frozen. And he caught up with me, and I began to plead with him, like, what are you doing? Why are you trying to kill me? And he's talking in this language I don't understand. And he was doing something with his gun. It was almost like he was reloading or something. And then he had the gun in his right hand after he finished fiddling with it and saying something to me in this language. And I just took my left arm and I grabbed his wrist like with a death grip. And I'm pleading with him more. What are you doing? Why are you trying to kill me? Why are you shooting at me? And so in my mind, I'm thinking about hitting this guy, you know, with all I can and wrestling this gun from him. And then I look to my right. A gentleman begins to walk to us, a security guard. He's Korean also. Now, on his side, he has a long silver, looks like a .357, a huge gun. All this is happening in seconds, and I'm thinking, okay, if I do that, if I hit him, take his gun, this guy might shoot me. So the guy that's been shooting at me, he wrestles from my grip, and he grabs me by the shirt, and he puts that gun in my stomach and pulls the trigger. When he pulled the trigger, I just jumped back, but nothing came out. And at that time, he took the gun and he hit me in my temple. Now, I had never been hit by a gun before, but it felt like a truck ran into the side of my head. That's how it felt. and I was out cold for about 10 seconds. But my mind was still thinking at that time. And while I was laying on my stomach, I was thinking, all I could think was bullets going in my back. And I came to, and I looked, and he was walking the other way. And I began to run. And I didn't put it together at that time that he was out of bullets. So when he was walking, I guess he was going to reload. But while I was running out of the parking lot to that white van, he fired another shot. That was shot number 6. And that bullet went into someone's apartment in their living room across the street. And this guy saw everything. He saw the whole incident, which lasted about 45 minutes. And when it was all over, that guy bought that bullet that landed in his living room, through his kitchen in his living room. He put it in a baggie, a sandwich baggie, and he brought it to the police and told them, I saw the whole thing. I saw him chasing this guy around the parking lot, and just gave him the whole story. But while I ran, after he walked the other way, I ran to this building, and I was running in there telling everyone I could see. Now, mind you, I'm in Koreatown, so all of the businesses are Korean owned. And I'm telling them, please call the police. Please call the police. Can I use your phone? No one would let me use the phone. Now, I'm thinking this guy is going back to reload and come back to finish me off. No one paid me any attention in that building. So I ran in a bathroom and locked the door. I didn't know if he would come to that bathroom, put holes in, shoot through the door. All these things are going through my mind. But after I didn't hear anything, I came back out. There was a phone booth right there. Phone booths were still popular, although cell phones were more popular. But I had threw my cell phone, so I didn't have mine. I got on the phone and dialed 911. And I told them what happened. Please send someone here right away. They said, well, someone else had already called the police and they're there. So come outside, wherever you are, just come out in the parking lot. So I came out into the parking lot, and the ambulance was there also. The news was there with camera and everything. And so the people in the ambulance who, supposed to give me attention, I came out of this building, I just collapsed on the ground in a sitting position. And I was so dehydrated. I was pleading and begging for water. Never knew how desperate someone could be for water. That's what I wanted. And while I was on the ground, I looked at my shirt, I saw blood, so I asked them, can you check me to see if I've been shot? Because sometimes people get shot and they don't even know it because of the adrenaline. And I've been running and pleading 45 minutes, being shot at. I didn't know if I had been shot. And so when I asked that question, one of the guys said, yes, you've been shot in the head. I had a big split in the top of my head. And once he told me that, I was more hysterical. Now, instead of them helping me, they were interrogating me like I had committed a crime. And they kept asking me what happened over and over again. And they wanted to take me to the hospital. I was so afraid because of how they were interrogating me. I didn't want to be in an ambulance with them. So I took myself to the hospital. And when I got to the hospital, they told me that I had a bullet graze. They said if the bullet had been lodged into my head by millimeters, I would have been a vegetable for life. That's how close the bullet was to my brain. And I've had the scar in my head, is still in my head to this day. Every time I scratch up there, I remember this incident. And so the police was there. They come to get me. They handcuffed me, took me to the police car, and began to ask me these questions like I had committed a crime. And all the time, I'm still trying to find out what's going on. And as I'm in the back, I hear over the radio, the police radio, that, let me just say this, that the car that was involved in this incident, they found way across town somewhere. So they begin to ask me, do I hang there? Do I know people there? Do I have friends there? I said, no, I've never been there. Don't go there. And the place that they were talking about is a terrible part of Los Angeles, gang-riddled part of Los Angeles. And anyway, I come to find out that the man's jewelry store had been robbed by young men who were same color as me. And so when he saw a black man, he thought that I was one of the robbers. Now, he had his wife and 6-year-old daughter in the store. I don't know why he went in the store and fired 2 shots. I still didn't understand that one. But as I'm sitting in the police car telling my story, that I'm here dropping a woman off at the bank and on my way home, telling them the story. Then the guy who I mentioned, who the bullet went into his kitchen, landed in his living room, he brought the bullet there and told them he saw the whole story, the whole thing. And so they end up letting me go. A Korean detective in charge of the case took my information, and he called me. Now, this thing had me terrified. After I found out that $500,000 in jewelry was taken, I thought this Korean was a part of the mafia and that they were going to come and hunt me down. So for a long time, I was even scared to go in my house, in my bathroom, which a window was there. I was afraid to be in the bathroom next to the window. I didn't want to go in public places. It just terrified me. But I still had God in my heart, and I could have pressed charges against this man for attempted murder, but I didn't. When the detective asked me that question, I told him, after knowing what happened to him and his family, I don't want to send the man to jail. So I just thank God. Now, remember at the beginning of this testimony, I told you that I was thinking of committing suicide? Think about that. And then this happened. God said, oh, you want to die? And he brought me face to face with death. Had I died that day, I would have died a lost man. But this incident helped bring me out of that lukewarm stage. And I was determined to be a bottom line Seventh-day Adventist, 144,000 material for the rest of my days. And I thank God for his mercy and long suffering and for having pity in our ignorance. That's my testimony.